So there was somebody who was, or not somebody, enough people on Instagram have been telling me about how Indian matchmaking is sort of glorifying our rather traditional aspects of marriage. And then there is a patriarchal element that gets highlighted and so on and so forth. And this problem I had incurred back in the day when Urta Punjab had come out. So I was younger. I'm still decently young, but I was way younger back then. And when I saw the film, I was like, wait a second. Is this piece of art representing a reality or propagating a reality?
Right.
How do we exactly conceptualize something like this? Because with Indian matchmaking, are we only showing what is, and in that sense it can be absolved of its crimes of promoting a system that may not be as fair and equitable as we'd want? Or is it propagating and perpetuating that system instead? Is art a presentation or a representation? And I'm
I
not
think
sure.
it's a fantastic question. Sorry, did I let you finish your question?
No, I was finished.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I think it's a fantastic question. It's a question that has really haunted art for as long as art has existed, which is as long as perhaps human consciousness has existed. Art is way more than 60,000 years old or 80,000 years old. I've always believed that art is as old as human cognition, which would be 250 to 300,000 years old, perhaps.
Hmm.
And I say that because metaphor is the cornerstone of human cognition. The ability to translate and transmit uh, objective and subjective experiences, factual experiences, factual observations that have been received in participation with the environment, and the subjective experience of that, the responses that your body and your mind have produced in response to that stimuli. Uh, the sum total of that is we have the ability to transmit that, to record that, to show that to each other.
Right.
From cave painting to virtual reality, that has really been the record keeping has been one of the key objectives.
Right.
Where it goes beyond record keeping, of course, and that's where these questions become relevant. That we are not only using art to record, but we are also using art to prescribe. We are using art as a means to start a dialogue, to transmit not only what is, but also what ought to be. And there the responsibility of art becomes extremely interesting and necessary and important. So uh, so the question that you asked, whether Indian matchmaking, for example, is it perpetuating something, or is it um, I haven't seen the show, so I won't be able to comment on that particular project, and I've unfortunately not seen the film either.
Right.
That you mentioned. But here's what I feel: that a lot of cinema does perpetuate lot of existing cultural works
Tropes. Right.
globally, perpetuate worldviews, perpetuate insights, uh, and that is that blueprint of whether it's a prescription, whether it's a reflection, whether it's a critique. It's very deeply woven into the vantage point of the author. So uh, it's not as ambiguous as we'd like to imagine it is. In most cases, it's actually very transparent. It reveals itself. The vantage point of the author, whether that vantage point is reflective, whether it's critical, whether it's prescriptive, whether it's celebratory, whether it's ripping something apart and hoping to rebuild something. In most cases, this vantage point is extremely evident.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when it comes to violence, for example, that's something that we perpetuate a lot in cinema. There are actually two major themes that we perpetuate in our literature and cinema: sex and violence. And then there are the euphemistic versions of sex and violence. So there is a euphemistic version of sex which is romance, filial love, Christmas reunion, all kinds of things that lead up to sex. Um, and there is violence, and there is all kinds of narrative that leads up to violence. So there is revenge, there is keeping your kin safe in the face of danger. Now, the reason these narratives are so all pervasive, and these are the narratives that keep repeating themselves over and over again, uh, the reason is completely evolutionary. We evolved in for instance our environments where the access to resources was limited, access to mating partners was limited, given that human population perhaps was also extremely small. So your opportunity to kind of participate in in progeny creation was a massive challenge. And hunting and gathering is pre-agrarian. Most of human life has been pre-agrarian. Most of our species history is pre-agrarian. 10,000 years of agriculture, 250,000 years of pre-agrarian life. So
Right.
finding resources was difficult, and hence keeping your safe in the face of danger was a major theme of the life of the species.
Hmm.
So these are stories that are so deeply woven into our behaviors, into our evolutionary behavior, that we respond to these stories in a in an addictive manner, in a seductive. We get seduced by these stories very easily. The same way we get seduced by carbs and fats and sugars and salts in our food, because they've played a very clear evolutionary value. They have had a
Hmm.
very clear life sustaining value. Uh, Progeny creation and sex, romance, love, filial love as means to progeny creation, and violence, keeping your kin safe in the face of danger, uh, are the two things that would have sustained humanity for so long, and hence the two themes keep repeating themselves over and over again.
Hmm.
Now most artists, most filmmakers are not even aware of this. They respond to violence in a very behavioral manner, in a manner that is not very different from being in that moment. Most art is about, unfortunately, about replication,
Hmm.
is about mimicry.
Hmm.
Most art is about replicating to a high degree of fidelity the observed. So recording with a high degree of fidelity,
Hmm.
and recording with a high degree of fidelity the subjective experience of the character, of the vantage point. And it really ends there. The finest art is art that is able to record vantage points, is able to record the inner worlds, the inner consciousness of the narrator, or the protagonist. And that is really the highest kind of art.
Hmm.
The art that we are talking about, probably, and the question that you're asking now, is the art that goes further than that.
Hmm.
Is the art that looks at record keeping in and by record keeping I mean much more than just objective record keeping,
Right.
or record keeping subjective and objective.
Hmm.
One record keeping is looking at a bison and going and making a sketch on the wall, of the cave wall, on what a bison looks like, and showing it to your children so that they know what to hunt and what to gather.
Hmm.
And the other is also including in that what it feels like it
Hmm.
to confront one, to stand in, to look into the eyes of one.
Hmm.
So good art manages to keep this record well.
Right.
Greater art manages to tell us what to do with our lives so that we can build a better world.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's the kind of art that I am drawn to, I am attracted to. I'm a utilitarian philosopher. I believe that art ought to have utility. I do not believe in art for the sake of art. I do not believe that, because the challenge with something like that is it can become extremely irresponsible.
Hmm.
If there is a lack of awareness and lack of comprehension on the part of the artist and the author of the intended effect of the art that they are producing,
Hmm.
it could very rapidly become exactly the kind of art we are talking about here, which is it can start perpetuating themes that we may want to critique and fight against and replace, instead of encouraging and proliferating.
Hmm. Right. That's very interesting. And to make your point sharper about objective and subjective, I think one way to say that, and tell me if I'm understanding the problem wrong. The objective element in art denotes what it is, the question what it is, and the subjective element is how must you behave or how must you experience it, right? And those are
That's right.
those are two very different concepts, in the sense that this is a screen, but when I look at a screen, the first
That's right.
instinct my cognition has is, what do I do with the screen? And
That's right.
then the fact that it's a screen. A table can be
That's right.
used to sleep on, a table can be used to put something on. The utility appears first, or the function appears first, and then the objectivity slides in. And so in some sense, the objective and the subjective is what it is and how you must behave in response to it.